My name is Heather, and I'm here for another AdvocateHub class. I know you were all super looking forward to Don being here this week, but unfortunately, he had a last-minute appointment that took him away from the office. So he gave me his slides, and I spruced them up with some cat pictures, and we are ready to rock and roll. So today we're talking about groups and segmentation. So some of you may be familiar with this topic, some of you may not, but there's been a lot of changes in the Hub recently relating to groups and segmentation, especially with how different segments and groups are recalculated. So we figure we'll just do a deep dive and just get it all out there on the table so that we can all be experts together. So as I said, my name is Heather. You can tweet at me and Dawn at AdvocateHubLove. We would super duper love it if you guys would do that. Okay, so what are we talking about today? We're going to cover the topic in two different sections. So first of all, we're going to talk about how do you do segmentation? How do you set up groups? What does that look like? How do you set up match criteria in Salesforce? And then after that, we're going to come back to the slides and we're going to talk about why you would want to do these things. What is the advantage of staging? What's the advantage of segmentation? Why would you bother learning all this stuff and implementing it all in your program? So we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to convince you that it is a totally awesome idea. So the how. There's a few different things you can do. First of all, when you set up groups, there are rules. You can include everyone, you can include anyone, you can include all. We have includes, and then you should pretty much be familiar with that. But a new fancy thing we've got going on is excludes. And we're going to talk a little bit about match criteria and mapping over to Salesforce. So I am just going to I'm going to share my desktop and we're just going to jump right in. We're going to use VIP today. Usually we use MyHub Yoga Cats, but today we're using VIP just because they have a lot more good data to be using as opposed to poor little Yoga Cats. There's not much Salesforce mapping happening there. So we're going to start with groups. So you go to the groups page, the tab, and then you click add a group. Then you go to this page. We're going to call it, this is a cool group. If you want, you could put a description. Usually you would put the description based on what your membership is. Then you would fill out your invite code. So if you want to invite anyone specifically to join this group, you can send them a URL. We're not going to do that today. We're concerned about membership rules. Whoa, there's some green on this page. That's new. It is new. So we have a way now to include people and to exclude people. And we also have now two sort of categories of members of groups in the Advocate Hub. So you have those that have been manually added, whether they've been uploaded from a CSV, whether they've joined with a join code, or completed a group join stage. These are people who've been explicitly added manually into this group. These also include people that you've just gone in and manually added yourself, and I'll show you how to do that afterwards. So then we also have membership rules, and this is a really key new thing that we've got going on. So you can do two things. We'll start with the includes. For includes, you can do two things. Number one, you can include everyone, and then that will just load all the names of all the advocates. That'll tell you right here you have 1,750 advocates in your group. That's everyone in the whole hub, okay? So let's say you want to invite most people but not all people. It might be a good idea to set up an everyone group and then exclude some people. So when you're excluding people, you can use any or all. So include everyone, or you can include some people following satisfying conditions. So the conditions for including and for excluding are the same. So we have, in both cases, you can choose whether you want to include or exclude anyone with all of these conditions or all of these. Any of the conditions or all of the conditions. So I'll show you what the conditions are. You can do this based on group. So whether someone is a member of a certain group, groups on groups. Then we have advocate info. So what is their job level, their user type. These are categories that you set up when you're configuring your match categories. Some of them are defaults and they just come with the hub automatically. So things like title, if you scroll down, NPS score, level, email, current points, total points. These are going to come automatically with the hub, and they're always going to be here, but you can add in your own as well. So things like contact owner or advocacy coach. Those are fields that are populated on your advocate's contact record through Salesforce. And I'll show you what that looks like in a few minutes. So this is all just different advocate information that lives on your advocate's contact record. Let's just do a quick refresher. What's a contact record? This is an Advocate Hub contact record, not a Salesforce contact record. We'll click on Iran here. He's top of the list. So if I click Edit, I would see Iran's name, Salesforce ID, his title, his company, and then I click over to match criteria, and I see all these other fields. And if these fields are filled out for him in Salesforce, they'll also be filled out here. This is something that we've specifically set up as part of Influitive. But some of these details, for example, this first page here, title, company, email, name, these are filled out by default. So when you're looking to set up a group and you're looking at the Advocate Info category, it's exactly what it is. It's information about your advocate. So most of it is match categories, it sits on the profile, things like NPS score, level, current, and total points. They're a little bit different. You can see those things on the advocate profile, but you don't see them as part of that advocate contact record. The third element that we have here is advocate behavior. So things that they've done, activities or events that have been logged against their advocate account. So things like earning badges, completing challenges, redeeming rewards. Well, are they engaged or not engaged? Are they active or not active? Those are all different behaviors that you can set up here. So I'm going to show you one that I think is kind of cool, and that's NPS score. So you could set up a group. And this group would be for anyone whose NPS score is greater than or equal to 8. Then it would look in the whole system and it would find 70 advocates whose NPS score was greater than or equal to 8. We could also find one, so let's say we wanted to see everyone who's participating in the April 2014 draw, and anyone who has earned the badge for earning 1,000 points. We want people who have all of these categories, so the list on the right is people who have done both of these things. If I change the rule and say any, then I'm going to get a lot more people, because now it's picking up anyone who either has 1,000 points and is participating in this draw. So there's a lot more people that show up under that. Then I can also exclude people. So let's say, okay, I've got 253 advocates in this group, but I want to exclude anyone who is in the employees group. So I say group, type in employee, Influitive employees, click, and it recalculates, and now I have 40 fewer advocates in my group. Now I'll save it. Okay, so I can see that I have not manually added anyone to this group, and I can click the tab to see who I've added to the group through rules. So same as before. If I had not added any nominees to the group at the time that I was adding nominees, those people would live here. And then if I have any challenges targeted specifically to this group, I can see that under the Challenges tab. Obviously, I just created this group, so there's no challenges. If I wanted to manually add an advocate, I would just click Add Advocates. I would type in someone's name. So let's say I pick myself. I'm an employee. So my employee group account is Heather. I have basically 2 accounts in VIP, and this one is not in the employees group, but the other one that is blocked from this list because that person is excluded. So you cannot, I think, manually add these people in. Okay. You know what? Don't quote me on that, because I think that it's actually possible that people who are manually added are different. Let me try one more other person. Nadia. Okay, so I'm wrong. So anyone who's added through rules, the rules respect people who were added through rules. But let's say there was a person who was in the employees group that we really wanted in this group. We could manually add that person to this group. So rules respect the people who were added through rules. Manually added people do not abide by the rules. They're their own category unto themselves. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, I promised you that we would talk about Salesforce match criteria, and I know it's a really exciting topic, so that's where we're going to go next. So if you go into your Influitive admin settings, and you go under Salesforce, well, you'll do 2 things. First of all, you go under System, and you select Match Categories. And these are all the different match categories that we saw on the advocate profile. So you can make these anything you want. They don't have to be something that you track to Salesforce. They can be something that you fill elsewhere through a different way. It could be something that you fill manually. It could be something that you fill out when you do like a CSV import of advocate information. Either way, this is where you create your match categories. So if you want to add one, you just type in the name and hit Save. It gets added to the list. And then if you do want to map information from Salesforce onto one of these categories. Then you go into Salesforce and you select field mappings, and then you select them. So you can see here, most of these ones are mapped over. So for example, let's say industry, okay? The Salesforce object where that information lives is selected, and then the name of that field in Salesforce is put in, like account.industry. If you see one that isn't mapped, for example, account type, you would click where it says unmapped. Then I could choose whether it was a contact or opportunity where that information was, enter the Salesforce name, click Create Salesforce Field Mapping, and then the next time that Salesforce and your AdvocateHub sync, it will just import that information and add it to the Advocate profile. So that's important to know just because that is information that you can use to create groups and segment out your AdvocateHub. So we are now going to jump back to our slides and keep this train moving. Okay, so we're done with the tools. We're moving on. Oh, moving too fast. So challenge unlocking. So there's an old way that challenge unlocking worked. There's a way that it works today. There's a new way that it's going to work starting tomorrow, and then a newer way that it will work slightly down the road. So I'm going to take us through this as best I can. So essentially what you can do in your AdvocateHub is you can make challenges visible to advocates, or advocates live in groups based on them having done something. It could be that they earned a badge. It could be that they completed a challenge. It could be that their level changed. It could be a lot of different things. So there are sort of two categories that we're going to talk about today. That is the challenges that become available, or that is the unlocking of challenges based on challenges, and then everything else. So a challenge based on, let's say, for example, a badge. So it used to be in the past that the only way that you could, so let me just pause here. The reason you would want to do this is so that you could make a challenge visible to someone based on them already having done something else. So for example, in the past, the only way that you could really do that is to have an advocate, or the only way you could do that quickly would be to have an advocate complete what we would refer to as a join group challenge. And that challenge would instantly put them in the group, and then any challenges available to that group would immediately become available. If you had, let's say, a challenge that was based on someone earning a badge, it would take up to an hour after earning that badge for the challenge to become available. If you had a group that was for everyone who completed the referral challenge, the first time that someone completed the referral challenge, it would take up to 1 hour for them to land in that group. So that made it sort of difficult to manufacture an experience for advocates based on them having done things, which if you attended last week's class about levels and badges, we talked about how having advocates' experiences change based on the things they do is like a sort of a valuable and impactful way of motivating people. So this is why we want you to be able to do this. So that's the way it used to work. Today, right now, if you have an advocate, or if you have a challenge that is set up to become visible to an advocate, let's say we'll call this Challenge B. Challenge B is visible only to people who have completed Challenge A. Right now, when people complete Challenge A, it will take 5 seconds before Challenge B becomes available. Starting tomorrow, that will become instant. So as soon as you do Challenge A, immediately you just refresh the page and Challenge B is going to become visible. So that's a really big change, and that makes it a lot more possible for you to do these types of things. So not only do you have challenges that work that way, but also let's say you have a group for people who complete the referral challenge. In the past, it would take a while for them to get into a group based on having completed a challenge. At this point in time, it's a 5-second delay. So I complete the referral challenge. 5 seconds later, I get into the referral challenge group. And if you have any more challenges targeted to those people in that referral challenge group, then those become available after the 5-second delay. Again, starting tomorrow, that will be instant. So as soon as someone completes the referral challenge, they'll go into the referral challenge group immediately and immediately see any additional challenges. So we're just trying to make the sort of progression of challenges and activities, and we're trying to make the progression of segmentation a lot faster. So challenges or groups based on anything else are just currently recalculated every 20 minutes. So it's only challenge completion Challenges or activities or groups based on challenge completion, those are on a 5-second delay starting tomorrow when our next sprint, when our sprint ends and when our next code push goes out tomorrow morning, that will become instant. So that's something to look forward to. It was supposed to happen yesterday, but these things, sometimes they're beyond our control. So that's why we're introducing it this way. So what are we looking forward to? As I've said, starting tomorrow, challenges or groups based on completed challenges will be recalculated instantly. In the future, everything else, challenges or groups based on any other type of criteria, those will eventually go down from being a 20-minute delay to being instant as well. So this is something that our product team really believes in. It's something that we're on the CS team really pushing for. So we're trying really, really hard to make this happen for you guys because we think that it really makes the advocate experience better. Okay. So just to kind of give you guys an example scenario to kind of help us all wrap our heads around this. So challenge is completed. This is the scenario that takes 5 seconds right now and will become instant tomorrow. So scenario is, I'm creating a group that contains all advocates who have completed challenge A. Right now, that happens in 5 seconds. Tomorrow, it will happen instantly. Again, the next scenario is I'm targeting my challenges to all advocates who have completed challenge A. That challenge will become visible now after 5 seconds of having completed that challenge, but starting tomorrow, as soon as they complete challenge A, the challenge that's targeted to them will become visible immediately. Kind of a fun fact about that now with the immediacy is that when those challenges become immediately unlocked starting tomorrow, the advocates will actually see a little message at the top of the screen that says, hey, you've unlocked more challenges, and there will be a little unlock symbol on each one of those challenge cards. So that's something to look forward to. It should kind of help advocates identify what activities are new, and it sort of points out or calls out that experience of you've done something and now the experience is getting different or better. And again, as we talked about, that can be very motivating. So the other scenario, the one that's not instant, that still takes 20 minutes, is the idea that you would be creating a group that contains all advocates who have earned X badge. If someone earns that badge, again, it will take up to 20 minutes for them to land in that group. And the same thing with having a challenge targeted to them. So we're going to move on from that. And we're going to talk about why. Why in the world would you want to do this? I can tell you. So first of all, this helps you introduce new advocates slowly. And a lot of you who have already launched are sort of familiar with this because this is a CS best practice that we recommend, is that you create sort of starter challenges for your early advocates, and then you slowly introduce them to newer and more challenges because you don't want someone coming in just seeing your regular lineup of challenges because it can either be too overwhelming or too confusing. This way you can sort of give them a little bit of direction. And then also you can immediately start introducing them to the notion that the more they do, the more they see. So why else would you do this? First of all, you can create a catered experience. So if you look at this delightful image that Dawn has concocted for us, you can see that not all advocates are the same. So some advocates live in the UK, some live in America, some live in Canada, some live in other places. And where they live determines the type of activities they might be interested in seeing and also the type of rewards that would work for them. Amazon gift cards are a really good example of this. So by adding segmentation, by tracking your advocate's location, keeping that as a field in your AdvocateHub, you can then target challenges to advocates. You can create groups of advocates based on location, target challenges to advocates based on location, and then you can use that to ensure that their experience is consistent with who they are and where they live. And it also makes them feel like you understand them. You're not sort of, it's not, oh, I live in Australia, but they keep asking me to do these crazy American holiday challenges, like what's the 4th of July? You want to make sure your advocates feel like you really know them and you appreciate them. I know what the 4th of July is, I swear. Okay. So in some ways, it kind of lets you have 2 hubs in one. So you can kind of So you can create different experiences for different people. So let's say you have employees and you have customers, and you have both using your AdvocateHub. Employees probably don't want to see customer challenges and vice versa. So by using segmentation, you can create totally separate experiences, but do it all in one location. Again, the AdvocateHub in many ways is about scaling, and using segmentation to the maximum can really help you scale the way you interact with all of these different people. So you can segment based on level, like we talked about in the levels and badges class. Scaling based on level is a great way to make sure that the experience of advancing levels also reflects a different experience in the game. Geographic location, as I just mentioned, a really good way to segment your advocates. Things like customer relationship. Let's say you have like a huge company and you have different types of products, and your customers are using different types of products as well. They might, let's say they're using the telephone version of your product. They might not really be interested in seeing some sort of like a medical industry version of your product. So by segmenting based on vertical, or even based on customer relationship in terms of like company size and things like that, you can make sure that your advocates are getting the best experience and the most relevant experience. Customers, partners, and employees are 3 segments that we often see people take advantage of, and this makes sure that there's sort of the most personal and targeted communications possible. Segment for you. Why would you want to segment for yourself? So as we've talked about, segmenting for your advocates is a great way to make sure that their experience is different, but segmenting also helps you as the administrator, and it also helps people on your team. So segmenting is really, really valuable for references. Let's say someone is looking for a reference and they want the reference to be based on all these different criteria. If those criteria have been added to the advocate's profile or they've been created as a group, let's say the company size, the previous competitor that person was with, when a salesperson gets on a call with someone that says, hey, I used to use this product, I'm in this vertical, my company is this big, I want to talk to someone who uses your product who's just like me. You can use segmentation to find that person more easily. You can also segment based on NPS. So I showed you guys previously that you could set up groups based on NPS. And this is kind of a useful way that you can identify your top fans. And it's good, you want to make sure that that's visible to who you're asking for references. It's better to ask your NPS promoters to participate in references. Same with reviews. Maybe you only want your top promoters to be invited to write review challenges or speak to media. This is a good way to identify those people. But on the flip side, it's good to help you identify those who have a low NPS score and figure out why that is. Either focus on specific challenges and giving them some attention, survey them, get in touch with them, find out why are you not happy and how can we help this. And the employee experience. So here you can also use Influitive for employee onboarding. It's a good way to introduce an employee to the company, track their onboarding progress, figure out how they're doing, get feedback on the process. Overall, get all your employees involved and you can drive employee engagement. Again, when you're trying to do these things, those challenges aren't going to appeal to your advocates. And your advocate challenges might not appeal to your employees or even be applicable. So segmenting out your employees is a really good way to make sure that you do have, as we said, 2 or 3 or many, many AdvocateHub programs in one. So next week, we're going to sort of build on this notion a little bit, and we're going to talk about using Influitive for customer onboarding. So we want you to think about how your company onboards new customers, and we would like you to bring a friend with you to come to this class. So that is our challenge to you next week. Bring a friend to class who is, oh sorry, not next week, in 2 weeks. We don't do these weekly, we do them bi-weekly. So the next class is going to be in 2 weeks on May 14th. So we would like you to bring a friend to that, and we'll talk a lot about that kind of thing. So I see we do have some questions here, and so I'm going to head to the next slide. We're going to go through some questions, and after that we have a special treat for you guys. So just hang on the line a little bit longer. Okay, question 1. How can we hide they are in an NPS detractor group? So the question is, if I put someone in a group, can they see that I'm in that group? And the answer is no. The only person who knows someone is in a group is you, the administrator. Advocates cannot see that they're in a group from their own profile. The only way someone might know that they're in a group is if you put out a challenge that said like, hey, do you want to use our beta tester group? Or hey, do you want to join our reference group? If they say yes, then I think it's probably safe to assume that they feel they're in some type of group like that. But unless you specifically call it out, there's no way for anyone to know. Because you're right, like you wouldn't want to see situations where people knew that they were in NPS detractor groups, or if you were giving your groups wacky names, maybe they wouldn't want to see that either. My other question is, can NPS detractors be added to a group and excluded from specific challenges? And the answer is not yet. So you can, right now when you're excluding from a challenge, you can exclude, give me 2 seconds and look at this so I can look at this really quickly. I think the answer is no. And just clicking through the application to see. Okay, exclusions from a challenge. So no, if you want to exclude someone specifically from a challenge, you can only exclude advocates individually. However, if you did want to exclude a bunch of people from a group, you can create a group that includes everyone, and then you can exclude specific people from that group. So that's a good workaround. You can say, so you can target a challenge to a group. You cannot exclude a group. But if you target your challenge to a group that people are excluded from, it is basically the same thing as just excluding them from the challenge. So if that doesn't make sense, feel free to comment and let me know, or you can always email us as well. But yeah, that's more or less how that works.